Hi everyone, welcome to Easter Monday. After the great events of yesterday, as we celebrated Easter Day, and the story of how Jesus burst forth from the tomb and is raised by God from the dead. I hope you had a really good Easter day. And today, of course, in some ways can feel like the day after, often sorting out the house or whatever we're going to be doing. But really, Easter Day is meant to be the kickstart to something completely new, a new chapter. And that new chapter is to see a new hope born within each of us and indeed in the world. What does that hope look like? Well, that's what we're going to be looking at over the next 40 days or so as we lead up to Pentecost. We're going to do so through a piece of work called Surprised by Hope, written by Tom Wright. And really, it's going to help us explore the connection between all the events that we've been exploring over Easter and then a future world as we emerge after this pandemic and all that we've been through. What might hope look like? Well, for some people it can be simply that they want to get back to church, get back to meeting their friends, sharing communion, doing all the things that we know and love. It can also mean so much more. And as we then think about all the events of the world, all the things that maybe we hear on our TV screens through our news bulletins, we sort of wonder whether we can ever actually build a new world. But maybe we can start one step at a time. I showed a short video yesterday of a wonderful community in a place called Catura in Paraguay. There one day a gentleman found half a violin on their rubbish heap which surrounds that town and where many of the children and adults work, recycling the rubbish. And from that he built the rest of the violin out of other parts of rubbish. And from that rubbish he built a cello, and from that cello he built an orchestra. And together he gave them to the children, and the children learnt to play music. And when they played their music, they discovered not only the beauty of music, but also the beauty of the love that was within them. Something that has always been there, but which needed some way of it being able to be released. And it became famous because of the way it speaks into all our hearts. Something about that video that cries out within us that we would love the world to be more like that. We would love our communities, our churches, to be more like that. And this is something that makes God smile. And so we need to listen hard to it and think about it. Not just about whether we can set up an orchestra here, for instance, but more than that, it's taking it into so many different aspects of our lives, both small and big. In the face of all that goes on in the world, this can seem almost insignificant, but strangely, bit by bit, God's kingdom, God's hope is sown. And it's hard work, but at the same time, it is God's work. And so we can ask God to help us by returning to the resurrection stories and the power of the resurrection that happened for Jesus, and also by looking forward to Pentecost and asking God's Holy Spirit to be at work in us and through us, and in the way we see the other person, and indeed all creation, and allow our lives to be changed. I want to close with some words from one of the Psalms, Psalm 96, which itself talks about this world being recreated. It says here at the end, in verse 11, "Let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea resound and all that is in it. Let the fields be jubilant and everything in them. Let all the trees of the forest sing for joy. Let all creation rejoice before the Lord. For he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples in his faithfulness." Now, when we hear the word judge, of course, we immediately think, oh crikey, if God's coming to do this, he's going to find that there's something we've done wrong and therefore we're not going to be found acceptable in his sight. That's how most people often feel. But God's judgment isn't necessarily just to find what's wrong. It's actually a call to raise the barrier to what's right. And that word is love. Love will be the way the hope is fulfilled. Wherever we can see something as loving, then there God is. So said John in his first letter. And that needs to be something we look to and be guided by as we explore this work over these next days, but also more importantly, as we look to try and rebuild a new world and a new community after this pandemic, being guided by God and following in his footsteps. I'm really excited by looking at this work because it fulfills the Lord's Prayer that Jesus gave us. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Often words we say every day, but as we're going to explore together, these words do have teeth and they do have hope right at the very heart of them. So have a good Easter Monday, and indeed we look forward to beginning our journey together tomorrow with Kay.